So you mean somebody who has checked out the code anonymously as a patch?
Yes, and can send it to you, and then you can have a look at it and can decide what
Well, I mean, that can always be done, right? But just not in a very manner that is as convenient as this. I mean, you can always check out that anonymously from CVS and then, you know, make a patch and send it to Axel.
Yes, but with CVS right now, this would be a patch file, and Axel would have to apply it, and and if the repository has changed in the meantime, then that just opens a kind of worm. That's a cleaner solution here, but it's not something completely new. It's just streamlining of that sort of workflow. You can also use, instead of dark send, you can use SSH, and I will talk about that in connection with Mercurial. The main problem is that with large repositories and with some sorts of files, darks can hang for hours before it really does its job, if at all, and that's not acceptable for a repository that many people depend upon. It depends on the workflow. Many projects don't have that problem. I never had that problem, but then I'm the only developer even on different machines for the stuff that I'm using darks. So I try to con some collaborators into using darks, but they never even consider CVS, so I'm bad at selling this stuff. Okay, but that shortcoming is not a shortcoming of Mercurial. Mercurial, again, is decentralized, it's new, it's actively developed. It tries to incorporate a number of ideas from dark, so it should also be a relatively simple revision control system. It is written in Python, which, unless they did something really stupid, probably means that it runs on all machines, essentially all machines that we wanted to run on. Again, some expensive, old, slow Japanese big iron machines. They're not all Japanese, but I had to use some of these Japanese machines and I really hated them. On some machines, Python might not be an option, but it is relatively common, and there is no, once Python is there, then Mercurial should run without any porting. So that rate's relatively high in terms of accessibility. I think, but I have never checked, you cannot check out subtrees. I might well be wrong here. There are no unique version numbers, although Mercurial constructs unique revision IDs, which are, I don't know, 32, 64 character long hexadecimal numbers. And for many purposes, you can just use the unique first few digits of that. So in a sense, you get these unique numbers, but it's not a continuous enumeration. It's just, it looks like junk, and you have to know which string you need. But again, it has to be like that with distributed revision control. There's no support for CVS keywords, but that again can be changed if you use hooks. You can do that on your own. Probably there are some scripts that do this, I'm not sure. It's supposed to fix some shortcomings of Subversion, but they were not so explicit shortcomings that I would have remembered them over the half year or year since I read about it. So maybe it's not that bad. And you can use Apache or any web server in this case for serving the content of the repository, but you can also use SSH, and this should be there or there. The way one would do that with SSH, and this would work for all the revision control systems I've been talking about, and it's probably not perfectly secure, but it's not stupid, and it's probably more secure than the CVS P-server protocol, is one would create a user HG, and then in the authorized keys file of the user HG in the SSH subdirectory, one puts lines like this. So HG login is a script that basically allows well, that basically runs Mercurial, but nothing else. This is the username that gets as an argument, and if you do this and then you just add the key, that's a public key of the user that the user sends to you, then you get public key access without password for that user, but the access is limited to running just that command. And then you switch off some other stuff that might be security relevant. And in the end, you end up with anybody whose key has been set up in this file in such a line being able to log in, well, to temporarily become the user HG in order to really just run Mercurial and nothing else. You have I think this thing here identifies the user, so for Mercurial, for the logs and so on, you still have different usernames, you can identify who did that. And yeah, and this way, you only need access to this file here, and again, the whole HG user could be handled by Axel or whoever manages the repository. And once we have that, we don't need a system administrator again. And that should work with any of these version control systems.
But here you would need to send a key for every single machine you're working for.
No, that's the user's public key. But okay, if you have different public keys on different machines, yes.
Yeah.
Good.
But you can use the same key. I mean.
Okay, I always have different ones.
Wait a moment. So suppose you have a machine in Heidelberg and you use another machine. You also try for 2 hours a machine in Chicago.
Okay, in that
case,
case,
he email me and says, can you please set up in the next 5 minutes? Otherwise, I would lose even more time. And I'm only 2 hours.
True.
And then I say, oh shit, I'm 12 hours late. So is it not too late? And then he says yes. So,
or I would copy my private key from Heidelberg.
Well, actually, what you you can have your own repository in Heidelberg. You use SSH without these tricks to synchronize your changes from Chicago to Heidelberg, and then you commit from Heidelberg. That would be a workaround. That's not.
But that's not makes sense. Suppose we have different changes on the 2 different supercomputers then. That must all work with the same subversion control system in order to make sense. You don't want to have an exact copy necessarily. Copies are common and cheap with these distributed revision control systems. So on your desktop computer in Heidelberg, not on the Opteron machine, you would check out a copy of the current reference Mercurial repository of the pencil code. That's also the version that you basically check out in Chicago, and then you make changes in Chicago, and then you push them to your machine in Heidelberg. And then from Heidelberg, just as normal from your desktop, you push them. It's not terribly nice. I agree. It's one more hop that you need, but it's not too bad, I think.
So do people run into the problem that somebody else hears that Anders has made this useful change which he hasn't really given to Axel yet, so they start checking it out from there and you get basically big chaos. I mean, there are all these copies of the repository, and so a third user could check out either from the agreed central or from some other copy.
If Anders publishes his repository, that's basically up to us. I mean, you can, if you just want to give other people read-only access, you can run hgserv or server or whatever, and then it runs a very simple HTTP server, and then everybody who knows that URL can get changes from that repository. But that's basically up to us. I'm coming to a similar point now in the discussion. So let me just try to summarize some of the reasons why we might want to migrate to different systems or why we might not. A really nice thing about any revision control system more recent than CVS is that you can rename file and directories, and that is really transparently tracked by the revision control system.
right now, even if Axel changes directly in the repository, it gives terrible conflicts for the person. I mean, we have no way to do it now, right? Even if Axel was to go into the repository and say MV one file comma V to another file name.
See, that's even worse than
Then
much worse than just doing it with CVS, removing one and adding the other. That's all we can do.
But removing one and adding the other, you lose the entire CVS annotated and the entire log.
You don't really lose it, but it's accessing it is sufficiently difficult so that most people probably won't do it unless it's really important. I mean, anything that happened before the EOS branch merger is just lost history about which I don't even want to know.
That was because we could have done it differently and that would have been better.
Yes, but if you rename a file, you get the same sort of discontinuity and the same sort of hassle. That's the same hoops you have to jump through in order to get to the full history. So that's a major inconvenience. The history is there, but it's inconvenient to
What I normally do with my own repository is that I go in and I rename and I move the file in the repository, and then I delete my checked out version of the directory, and I CVS up everything again, and then I get the new file in with the new name with the proper history. Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, because I'm the only user of my own repository.
Oh, okay, yes.
Then I
with the
can
only
do it.
repository, yes, sure.
Then I can
Sure.
do this, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it won't work with the pencil code.
Yeah. So that's one big selling point for any alternative to CVS. Atomic commits are a good thing, I think, because it really means you can and you should structure changes in a better way, and it means that changes that belong together really go together, and not like in CVS where what you committed as one change changes the hydro.f90 from 1.152 to 1.153, and it changes timestep.f90 from 1.20 to 1.21, and it's very difficult to really figure out that those changes belong together. And okay, now everybody who's using us as a person do some advertising for
Well, you said before that so you can do offline jobs with Subversion, which I would put as a reason to migrate as well, because I think that's actually very convenient. Yeah.
We do what?
offline differences. So if you want to see what you have changed, you don't need access to the server, so you can do that on the app.
So just the last version, or
Just I think the most recent version, yeah.
Of course, with the distributed revision control systems, you would typically have the whole history at your hand.
But you also require more display.
Yeah.
and you can, just to make sure I understand correctly, check in a number of different versions. And they won't be part of the central committee, they will be just part of your only...
With the distributed ones.
Yes.
Yes. And well, the... okay, I think...
But not in Subversion.
No.
Not in Subversion. So... okay, that's reason to migrate. Why we might not want to migrate? CBS is probably still the most, well, that's my estimate. I have absolutely no data basis for that, but it might still be the most popular revision control system in use simply because of inertia and because for simple projects it's probably not worth migrating. And we don't have to learn anything new. That's supposed to be a smiley. Anyway, in order to use it because we have been using it all the time. And we know for sure that it is available for probably all the machines where we ever would want to run it on. And the nice thing about CBS, if it's not installed on a machine and you have a machine with the same architecture where it is installed, you can just copy one binary and it's there. No libraries, no hassle, nothing.
Whereas with HD you have libraries? You need
I
libraries?
I don't know.
I think you use executable.
But it's
But
I would have to check whether that's just one big Python file, in which case it would be the same, or whether it is a whole tree or whatever. It might be one big Python
full
file.
installation is a bunch of Python files. And
Okay.
I have it right here.
Okay, yeah.
But that's not a problem, is it? I mean, then you just copy all the
You
functions.
can copy all the stuff, and in the worst case, you have to set the Python path. So that's a one-line recipe that we figure out, and then we can do it. Yes.
So what about SVN? If that's not installed at a machine, I have the impression it's not installed everywhere as often as CBS. Is it easy to install? Can any user just download it and compile it all the time?
I would hope so, but I've never done it.
It's actually not completely trivial. It relies
All right,
on...
you need probably the
Yeah, it relies... But you don't have to use that there too. You can use two different database file systems. And one of them
but
is
the
sort of
Berkeley
internal.
is supposed to be better. No, which one?
No, the other
Yeah,
one is
the-
supposed to be better, but
Okay,
the
that was
Berkeley one is
just-
supposed to be more established and trustworthy. But
So it's not a no-brainer apparently.
now there's this other library. There's a certain library that you need to compile, and I think only Subversion uses. So, but I remember I had difficulties.
And now that library will depend on 3 other libraries.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
that's the usual Linux tree when you're installing something like pretty branch.
But actually, I mean, I think you have if one complains about Subversion not being installed on a machine, I think one has a very good case and by now. I mean, and it's not like it's a very big deal for anybody. I mean, for the system administrator.
Yeah.
And there may even be binaries for the most common architectures.
Sometimes you find static binaries for these. For Darks, for example, you just have to get a static binary that you don't have to worry about any of the.
Have been hard-coded into the binary.
Yes. Okay. Now, do we want a centralized or do we want distributed version control system? First of all, with a decentralized, with a distributed version control system, we can and we should still work in a manner that is relatively close to what we're doing with CDS now. There should be one, but it's my opinion, but I don't expect anybody to disagree with that. There should be one central reference repository, and whatever people do in their own repositories, it should be clear that that's their stuff if they don't upload the changes. But if anybody wants to get the pencil code, there should be this one URL where you know you get the pencil code, and if you didn't get your pencil code from there, you don't get any support or whatever. We can do that. And then the additional repositories are, in a sense, a convenience thing for others, for us mostly. For example, we can work offline having at our hand the full history. So if you're on an airplane, right now there's different ways of getting something like this. What I think Axel sometimes copies the whole CBS directory tree, the server-side tree on his laptop, and then he has the history. But of course, if he commits something, he then needs to port those commits to the server version. This way you would work exactly like that on the airplane, and you would accumulate changes, different changes, and then once you're back online you can upload all these changes and they will all be as separate changes on the server with separate log messages. So it's not like right now where one normally after doing anything of that sort, one has one big commit changes from my trip to Australia or whatever.
But the timestamp of those, suppose last night I did 6 changes offline, and then I want to synchronize with the server again. Then they would come with a timestamp, if such a concept makes sense, of this morning. Not of the individual timestamp.
Yes, I think so. So the timestamp is not a terribly useful thing. You still have it because it might be interesting to know in which order the patches came into the repository, but it's not. It doesn't give you that much information. It's not an invariant like it is with a centralized version control system.
Yeah, because of course different people have different times, may have the same timestamps, but of course very different trajectories.
Yeah,
in the meantime.
exactly. We can work on our own branch or branches, and then when a project is ready, we can commit all the changes together and all the individual log messages will be there. That's the variable what I was just talking about. So you can do that when you're offline. You can also do that if you just don't want to bother other people with work in progress and you want to only upload stuff when it's ready, which may or may not be a good thing. And almost everything is local, so you don't suffer from having slow access to the server and so on, except for pulling and pushing changes to the from or to the server. Everything is local, which makes the many things much smoother. On the other hand, having distributed version control has disadvantages. I think it encourages people to keep their own branches of the code even more than they already do now at times. And so changes that are done and that basically work for whoever coded them up and uses them are not available for the others. They don't get scrutinized, they don't get tested in other settings and so on. I think that's a danger that's already there. I sometimes don't commit stuff for quite some time. The multi-grid stuff I'm going to talk about on Friday. I'll probably submit it Thursday night. But it has been around for quite some time, and nobody saw the work in progress. It'll just be a finished thing that you can either accept or reject. And distributed version control probably pushes that mentality to even further. Okay, you know what horizontal ellipses are, but the browser doesn't. And the danger, the ultimate danger is that we might even get fragmentation of the code bases. That this makes it much easier for different versions of the code to coexist, which for a large project may be a good thing, but I don't think we have that size. I think we don't really want to have, and also for users it makes life difficult. I mean, with the Linux kernel, that's what happens, and it's well established, but that's a huge project. And then there's the branch where people know they get all the experimental stuff, so if they are really crazy or have nothing else to do than fixing the mess for 2 days after they tried out something new with the Linux kernel, they know to get their stuff there. Then all the distributions get only stuff from the stable branch, and then there's some special branches for special needs. The pencil code is not a project of that size and with such different or such disparate user base, I think. So it's not desirable, but this could happen easier, considerably easier with a distributed version control system. And also, it's nice that you can work offline for days, months, whatever, and then when what you've done is ready, you can commit that. But the problem is that would be a huge number of commit messages that probably nobody would ever read if they come all together. Right now, if you do changes, then the commit messages trickle in, and people have a chance of reading them, of reacting, of scrutinizing the code if they like, looking at the changes. If it all comes at the same time, you could still read them all, or you could, I don't know, instruct your mailer to fetch one, or your browser to fetch one log message each time you log in, or whatever. But nobody would do that. So I think it would just mean that we would know less about what the individual programmers, coders are contributing to the code than the way it is now.
And if there are some conflict between local repository, what's happened in this case?
Same thing as now. You might be able to push conflicting patches, but I think not. I think normally you have to try hard to do that. So normally before you push patches, before you upload your changes, you would pull the patches from the reference repository, and then you deal with the conflicts, and once you've solved them, you can upload the changes, which is pretty much what we're doing right now as well. If we want to migrate, then depending on what revision control system we want to use, there's a number of tools. There's a program called CBS to SVN, which is written in Python. And all these migration tools try to do an impossible job. They try to reconcile different concepts. They try to identify changes to different files that were actually committed together because they are less than 3 minutes distant in time and they have the same commit message or something like that. You can change the threshold, but it's always just an approximation. So this is never going to be a perfect job. CBS to SVN is supposed to be used once, so if we switch from CBS to Subversion, we would run this, and from then, well, we would make the CBS repository read-only, then apply this, and then in Subversion we would have the best approximation to the CBS history that these scripts can present to us, which is probably not bad. There's a number of other tools depending on what you want, where you want to migrate, and then there's Taylor, which tries to do conversion between all sorts of different revision control systems. And there is a setup with Taylor where you actually have a CBS direct repository and DARS or Mercurial or whatever repository at the same time, and you use Taylor to synchronize in both directions with the cron job. The man page for Taylor calls people who use that the brave people, I think, and I'm pretty sure this cannot be perfect, and it could mess up the repository significantly. So I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe for a very limited time one could try that. But in the long run, we want to have just one revision control system and one repository and two-way synchronization between say Mercurial and CBS will probably sooner or later lead into problems. I don't have any experience with that. And apparently some people use that, but I'm skeptical. And probably we would only find out that there's problems when it's practically too late. Okay, the SSH authentication, you already came up with a use case where it's somewhat problematic. Other issues with that are, I'm not sure how that would interact with Kerberos, which would probably be running on the server here. So people without Kerberos SSH would probably not get passwordless login, and then a round trip just to send a change via CV. Let's see. Can you even have the password? Now, I think if you need a password with that limited setup, it probably wouldn't even work. And even if so, with DARS, sometimes I have to type in the password, and just to upload a patch, I have to type it 3 or 4 times, so that's not practical. So if that really is an issue, if we really can't get passwordless log into the server without everybody installing a special version of SSH, which is not available for distributions other than the latest ones, then that's not feasible, and we shouldn't do that. But that can be checkable. There's probably some mild security issues, but then with pserver they are also there. And on the other hand, that's convenient because SSH is something we know to be relatively straightforward to set up and to keep it. Okay, this was more brainstorming and just trying to pile loads of information on your head. Basically, this is a discussion item, and we should discuss now if you have opinions on that. But probably we should also just think about this and figure out. Well, I guess it would be good to get a rough idea of which direction people would go, and then if we know what would be the preferred revision control system, then we can try to figure out all the gaps in information that I have, because I have not used any of
the version control systems I recommend except for CVS. So, opinions?
Thanks, first of all. I mean, one issue with CVS that comes up all the time is that that system administrators seem to laugh about you when they hear CVS, and to some extent that's just because they are also not well educated. I mean, they are not aware of the fact that it's not such a good, that CVS is not such a bad system after all. Regarding this security business, and we were laughing about the password business, that everybody knows the password that most of us are using. That really, there's not a single incident, as far as I'm aware of, where there was ever a problem. So the only thing that can happen if somebody knows explicitly the password is that somebody commits something under one of the entered user IDs, and these are on the order of more than 120 now, 130 perhaps, 140 maybe, that somebody pretends to be somebody else, sends a commit message, and normally I would read that, of course.
Sure, but
I would not even recognize that this is a spammer, or that's not, that this is, he says. But normally these are emails, of course. So if you get an email from somebody whom you think you know, and all of a sudden he is actually a hacker, you must be really very stupid not to notice that.